Welcome, welcome to Bad on Purpose. The show is called Bad on Purpose because of the recognition that absolutely every aspect of this realm is on purpose, no exceptions. Meaning that everything was intricately designed intentionally with the effect that it has overall in mind. And there's no exception to that rule. We didn't write any of the scripts of these lives. And if you don't have all the information present, is it really your choice? Today, I'm going to address a comment and I think a sentiment that a lot have um, about participation in this matrix system. And the comment was really directed to Christina. And I'll just say this about it, and I'll let you go, Christina. From my perspective, it doesn't really matter what you're doing in the matrix. The fact that you're drawing breath in it alone means that in some way you're contributing to it. There's not, to me, there's not, oh, I'm doing less contributing because let's go to the extremes. Oh, I'm in a corporate business versus I'm off the grid. Either one, you're still feeding the system data. And it's more about, in order to extract data, energy, information, and where did it feel that your best placement was for the containment of the individual being that you are. And we didn't write any of those scripts. There was no actual choice when it came to what we'd been presented, the environment that we were in, having no prior data aside from what we were thrust into during this life script. There is no real choice. There is no real decision that we're making. We're making choices that are laid before us from an external intelligence, the matrix operating system. So I have a few other things to say about it, but I'm going to let you take it away, Christina, because I'm outside right now and this heat is just fucking frying me, dude.
So I'm going to take a different approach to this. And I'm going to share some things about the script that I was given. So for anybody that's listening or that's going to listen, if child abuse, sexual abuse triggers you in a way that you is going to overwhelm you, I would stop listening now because I'm going to share some really dark shit. And it's going to seem like it's not to a point, but there's a point to it. So again, for anybody that is triggered by child abuse, just go ahead and hop off now. For anybody that can listen, that's fine. I don't need sympathy. I don't want it. But what I'm going to share is maybe, hopefully, going to expand anybody that is sitting on an ivory throne thinking that they can judge anybody for the choices that were presented to them. Hopefully, that can expand your perspective. So the comment was, how can you complain about the matrix if you're a nurse when you're directly contributing to it? So I'm going to rewind. I'm going to go all the way back and give a quick synopsis of my scripts. I've shared this in some detail, not much, but the script that I was given was directly placed with my biological father, who was a predator by nature. I had two brothers, and we were all sexually abused, physically abused, just in a really bad position. But it doesn't, just to say that doesn't express the depth of the life that I lived. Um, my dad was especially heinous. Um, when my mom was at work, he would do things like jerk off naked in the living room and watch porn and constantly call us in there. He would put cameras in the house. I used to get dressed in a closet in the dark as a little girl because I felt like maybe he wouldn't see me. I would wake up in the middle of the night to my dad standing naked over me. So I used to put I had a tiny first act guitar that I would put in front of my door so that hopefully if my dad came into my room naked, I would wake up to it. My dad would make us take showers in the coldest temperature that the water can get, and force us to stay in it as long as possible while he watched. My dad was a heinous individual, and this was a life I lived every single day. This was not and every once in a while, it was my entire childhood was living that way. My dad would we were already made fun of at school. My dad would, he would punish us for little things, but the punishment and the act wasn't the issue, it was what he could get out of it. So he would take all of our clothes away. He would tell me, "You only have 1 pair of clothes, and that's what you have to wear for 2 weeks. You gotta wear this pair of clothes at school, you know, everybody's gonna make fun of you." And he would let that punishment sit, and then when my mom was gone, he would give an offer. "If you do this thing to me if you do this thing to me sexually, you won't have to have this punishment." This was my life. This was my life. I had no real friends. I had one kid who I really feel like was a true essence being, and he was also being abused that I wanted to talk to. And that was another offer. It would get stripped away from me. And then if I wanted to have that friend, I would have to do something in return to be able to talk to that friend. It was impossible choices. No matter which way I went, it was awful. Um, when I was in third grade, I was taking any and all pills that I could get in just to numb out what was going on. I had no fucking idea. But my dad was a heinous individual, and that even expressing those things doesn't really cover the depth of the things that I had to go through as a kid. Um, he was psychotic in the way that he would wake us up at 2 a.m. and make us clean baseboards with bleach, or he thought that he heard a demon in the house and we had to go somewhere else. I mean, he was, I don't know what he was, but he was a predator, maybe even a fucking archon incarnate. I don't know. But this was my life. That was an everyday occurrence. It was all the time, every day. Um, and eventually, this came to a point where I had told a friend about the things that had happened. But at the time, I was very into taking pills. I was getting in trouble. I was 12 or 13. And so by the time she told her dad, they told the sheriff, I wasn't looked at as a victim, I was looked at as a criminal. So because I had told the truth about what my dad had done to me, he could immediately twist that into she's abusing us verbally, she's on all these pills, she's lying, she's crazy. So I was put into a facility. So after living that whole childhood of constant sexual, physical abuse, I ended up being put into a facility and treated like a criminal. A lockdown facility with girls that had extreme trauma. And there was only one person in that facility that believed me, and she would call DCS over and over and over again, and they would drop the case every time, and she would call again. But each time that she did that, I had to retell every single thing that my dad had did to me, which was just re-traumatizing over and over again. So long story short, I ended up things ended up happening to where I didn't have to go home. But I was given a choice. You can either go to a group home or you can wait for a foster home. So I waited for a foster home, which was its own script. My foster dad was a true narcissist. He had a small church at the time, so there started some of the Christian indoctrination. But I was only in that foster home for about 2 years, and I did not feel normal. So imagine a kid that had been sexually abused, living in a super heinous life, thrust into a foster home after having been in a lockdown facility for almost 2 years. and then having to go to high school like they're normal, trying to make friends like they're normal, and you're not fucking normal. Everybody knows you're in foster care. It's awkward as fuck. Um, it's weird. But I did get into a relationship, and it was the first time I felt like I could try to be normal, even though I wasn't. Um, and I ended up getting married very young. I had 2 kids. That family was very much a Christian type of family. And for a while, things were normal. And that's what I wanted to prove to myself. After all of that, I wanted to prove that I could be normal. I could have a normal life. But then, of course, another major event happened, and there was sexual abuse in that family. So there was sexual abuse that the victim's family and the perpetrator's family, there were kids, boy and a girl, that they tried to cover up. And they told the girl that she was lying. One of my sister-in-laws came to me and said, like, you know, this is what's going on. I feel like you might be the only person that will do something about it. And so what did I do? I did something about it. I brought it out in the open and I said, "You guys cannot keep hiding this. She is suffering. You guys are not taking this seriously. It has to be reported. This is not something that you can just pretend isn't happening." And as a result of that, I lost fucking everything. Their family that had been, but it was fake. They had been kind of close through church and through, all the family things. They had a big family. It fell apart instantly, and I was the criminal again. I was the criminal for telling the truth. Um, Half the family fucking hated me. I had a really good friend, I thought was a good friend at the time, that ended up backstabbing me and taking the perpetrators, their parents' side, and it was devastating. I fucking lost everything. And then as that progressed, my then husband at the time, there were already some dark sexual things that he was into, but because he didn't have the mask of religion and church anymore, it became very obvious. So I didn't really know it was a problem until it was right in my face that it was a problem. I had 2 little kids at the time. I didn't really have any family of my own, no support, of course. Previously, you guys can understand why that is. I didn't have anybody. I had the little family that I had built, and that's what I had. So I, at the time, was just a CNA, certified nursing assistant. I think I made like 10, 11 bucks an hour at that time, changing people, changing their fucking diapers and washing them and giving them showers. That's what CNAs usually do. I came home on a shift and found my then husband at the time doing some pretty heinous things. Kids were asleep. Um, but then it revealed that there were a lot of things going on under the surface I didn't know about. He was into some pretty depraved sexual things that, even after going through all the abuse that I had gone through, I was not used to. And as a result of me catching him doing those things, again, I was just on a break. I think I needed a pad because I started my period at work and caught him doing things that I did not expect. And as a result of me catching him, he was threatening to kill himself. He went off the deep end, and my life was in shambles all over again. So each time that I would try to rebuild my life into something, it just fucking collapsed, just came crumbling down every single time. So I was in a really hard situation then. I didn't know what to do. Um, but at the time, I felt like the only thing I could do was try to make the marriage work. So I tried to lean into some of the weird things that he liked to see if it would keep him appeased. I tried to let him do what he wanted, and it resulted in him ended up he ended up texting a female coworker all the time. That was trauma in and of itself, and it was such a tumultuous time that I was like near a collapse point in my life. I did not know what the fuck to do. So I let that ride out for a little bit. I tried to do what he wanted, tried to let him do things even if I didn't agree with it. because I wanted to make it work. It's all that I had. I didn't have anything else until one day I just decided I don't want to live like this anymore. I didn't know how I was not going to live like that anymore. I had a job that couldn't pay, I mean, fucking $10, $11 an hour. I couldn't pay for a place of my own. I couldn't take care of my kids on that income. I had no idea how. I just knew I didn't want to live like that anymore. It was a hell that I lived every single day. And so there comes the really bad choice of I can go into government housing and still work as a CNA, but basically be forced to have government assistance all the time for food, for housing, for everything, and barely make it with 2 kids. I could have done that. Or I could try to make better money in a field that I already had some experience in, which was healthcare. But the stick to that was I had to stay living with the husband that I was then. I told him straight up, like, we're done. And he agreed to that. He said, I don't want you. I mean, he was nice in that moment, but he didn't want me to have to go live on government housing. He said, we can stay living together while you go to school, which again was another 3 years of fucking hell. It was hell. I went to school 4 days a week, again, because it was the only option I had. If I wanted to make enough money to provide for myself and my kids, I had to make a choice. And I did not have good choices given to me. I didn't have family to support me. I didn't have a backup. I didn't have help. I had fucking nothing but what I could do for myself. So I did that. I went to school, took the kids to school, would rush to go do my thing, pick the kids up from school, and go work part time as a CNA in the evenings. Did that for years. Um, and when I would come home, I was fucking alone. When the kids were asleep, he took up the living room playing Xbox. I had the bedroom because we didn't sleep together anymore. And I was just alone. And I drank myself to death. I drank every night. I would pass out in my car drunk, and I would wake up and do it all over again. And nobody really knew I was doing that. It was just how I coped. I got drunk every night, went to school, got good grades, took care of the kids, got drunk, rinse, repeat, over and over and over again. Um, but I finished school, and then I was able to make enough money to take care of myself and my kids. Barely, but I was able to do it because then I had my nursing degree. I was able to get jobs that could provide. I got my first house on my own. Now, at the time, I was in another really bad relationship that lasted 7 years that never should have been, but that's a whole nother side story. But the point is I was not given good choices from the jump. I was never in a position to make the best, most aligned choices. It was always bad. No matter which way I turned, it was always bad. So, getting my nursing degree was not necessarily at the time a choice that I made because it was the best thing I wanted to do for myself. It was survival. I knew I had at least the somewhat intelligence to be able to get through it and make better money. And that's what I did. And again, no support, no backup, no resources. If I can't provide for myself, I'm fucked. I have no backup. I didn't get child support. I didn't get any of that. So throughout all this, I ended up, getting different jobs, and I bought my first house. And then I started to wake up after a drowning incident and started to shed more things from my life, get rid of the relationship that was just, that's a whole nother sidetrack of trauma of, getting cheated on and being drunk together and not good things. But the point is that once you get your nursing degree, you really don't have a lot of options. You have this set amount of income, which is not bad, but you can't really take your nursing degree and just do something else, right? So it wasn't, it's not something that I still want to be doing. but it's something that because of the choices that I was given years and years ago, I was flooded into. So, for all of that, when you look at the whole of my script, to take one piece of my script and say, how can you complain about the Matrix when you're a nurse? How can I not? My whole life script was fucking hell that I did not choose. I did not choose to be born into that family. I did not choose the abuse that I endured every day. I did not choose for my relationships to go that way. I did not choose to have no backup, no support, no family, no nothing. I had to fucking survive. And the only way at the time that I was given to survive was to get a fucking degree that I could make more money and pay for myself and my kids. That's the choice that I was given. So before you, any of you that are listening or are going to listen, look at someone's life now and think that you have the right to judge the job that they're in, the place that they're in. You better sure as shit look at your own life, or at least have the expanded perspective to ask the question, what script did they get given in their life to put them in the situation that they're in now? Because if you don't know how this place operates, then just say so, because this place operates by cornering you into impossible fucking choices. And that is always the life that I live. That is always the fucking situation that I found myself in, was that I was in a corner with impossible fucking choices to make. There was not a good avenue for me. I had to decide in that moment, what is the best thing that I can do now to fucking survive? That's what I did. I fucking survived it. Now, as it pertains to nursing, put the whole life script on the side. You could say that about every job that you take in this place. If you really wanted to have that kind of perspective, is that every job that you have, right? Nursing contributes to the matrix. If you have a retail job, are you contributing to capitalism? There is no good option here unless you were given an easier script where you didn't have to make those impossible choices. Maybe you have your own business. It doesn't matter what job you have in this place. You are contributing by participation. If you are participating in any fucking way, it doesn't matter if you live off grid. It doesn't matter if you have your own business. It doesn't matter if you work retail. It doesn't matter if you're a doctor, nurse. It doesn't matter. If you are participating in any way, you are participating in the matrix. So if you want to judge someone else, I sure as shit hope that you have the expanded perspective to see what this place does to people. And my script is not unique. I have met many people in this life that were put in fucking impossible situations. They were cornered. They had no other choices that seemed good to them at the time. Now, as far as nursing goes, let me tell you something. I have seen the entropy up close and personal. I have watched countless individuals take their fucking last breath. Countless individuals take their last fucking breath. I have seen 80, 90-year-olds screaming out to a mother that passed away 30 years ago because their brain is looping in a time that they don't understand. I have seen elderly people scream out for mercy from the false god of this matrix. I have seen wounds so deep and so big that you can see the fucking bone of that person. You can see the fat, you can see the fucking veins, you can see the bones. I have seen the entropy up close and personal. So you can say that me being a nurse is just contributing to the matrix, but I would like to frame it differently, is that being in long-term and hospice care, which is what I've only done primarily, I've only worked with people that are on the brink of death. I've seen what this place does to those individuals as it brings you closer to your point of transition. And it is fucking horrible. Do I want to be doing it anymore? No. I have very little left to give to anybody. I have very little left in my tank. After the fucking life that I've had here, I have nothing, hardly nothing left to give. But right now, that is my choice. To provide for myself temporarily until I transition, I do this job. This is what I do. And I go in and I see tons of individuals that have no fucking clue what's happening. They shit on themselves, they piss on themselves, they scream all day. They're in agony, they're in misery, they're about to die, they want to die, they don't want to die. All of that and everything in between. I see it and I take care of it up close and personal. So you can say that I'm contributing, or am I willing to look at exactly what this fucking place does to people and see it for what it is? Because you can ignore the fact that millions of elderly get shoved in these buildings and forgotten about while they wither away, their brain withers away, their skin fucking deteriorates, their brain is gone. They can't eat anymore. They can't even pick up a fork. They can't use the bathroom. They can't walk. They can't take care of themselves. All that is still happening. So whether you want to have a job or a life where you just say, I'm not going to participate in the matrix, you're participating in the matrix, all that horror is still occurring while you're in that mindset. All the children that are being abused and tortured are still being abused and tortured. So whatever mindset of being above others that you want to have is a fucking illusion. The terror still continues every day. And even if I left everything behind and didn't work anymore, those people would still be in that building screaming in fucking agony, not knowing where they are, who they are, and why the fuck they're where they are. They have no idea what's going on. They would still be there. They would still fucking be there. Do I agree with the system? No, I don't. But you're fooling yourself if you want to point out somebody else and say that you are not participating in this matrix. You're doing it by default. How somebody participates in the matrix isn't fucking for you to judge. You have no right and no scope of mind to judge somebody else for the life that they were given. I did not get a choice, and many other people are in that same exact fucking spot. I think I'm done with my rant.
Bravo. That was brilliant. And the title of the show, The Effect is the Purpose, in quotations, right? Because that's, if you want the formula to break down everything in this place, very simply, it's all very simple. The effect that it has is the purpose. So that does go both ways, right? That's the other part of the title. It goes both ways, meaning that, like a comment like that, there's an intended effect, and the intended effect would be to do what? Something that we've seen a lot on this show, to get you to be quiet, right? To second guess yourself, to judge yourself based on the script of the false reality that we're in. So, I mean, I would take it a step further and say that, it doesn't matter what you're doing or not doing in the matrix. Like, if you're animating a body, that body is hooked into this place. You're feeding energy into the system, regardless. The system is the reality. It's not just the financial system or the social system. It's not just one aspect. It's not, oh, it's what people are doing. No, it's the entire reality construct itself. Therefore, if you are animating a character in that construct, your energy is being siphoned and fed to the parasitic intelligence that runs this construct. Period. Doesn't matter what you fucking do. People can sit there and claim, oh, I'm a sovereign being and I haven't, worked a job or paid taxes or done this or done that. Well, okay, but you're still animating a meat suit, right? That's not you. Ultimately, that's not you. That's an external apparatus that is a part of this place and this place only. It's not something that you take with you. It's not you. It's part of this. So anyone that's here animating a body is feeding the system, regardless of whether you grow all your own food and live in the fucking woods in a dirt hole. It doesn't matter. The reality system itself is the problem. And no level of individuals not contributing to the financial system, number one, I'd like to point out how interesting and obvious it is that every choice that you were given, just like many of us, I'd say all of us, were binary choices. Oh, you can do this or you can do that. They're both bad. They're both poison. They're both toxic and slavery to your fucking essence. But that's the binary choices that everyone here is given. And some are given choices that look better. And again, break it all down. The effect of that. What is the effect of all the countless people that are given the choices that are bad and worse? And then they observe somebody whose choices were good and better than their choices that they were given. Well, they're going to be judging themselves. They're going to be feeling like shit about themselves. So what is the effect of someone having better choices and a better life? Well, that can generate exponentially more suffering for all of the others that weren't given those choices, for them to ask themselves, well, what's wrong with me? Because very few make it through the security system of this place to actually firsthand, directly, objectively see what this reality is. What, just simply, what is? What is this? And they delude themselves into thinking, well, it's me. I made these choices, not realizing that it is all external. The body itself is external. You don't choose to beat the heart. You don't choose when it gets fucking cancer. You don't choose the level of entropy in whichever organ fails first. It may seem like it's a choice. Oh, it was their choices on their diet or their health habits. Man, I've seen people that are the healthiest people in the world drop fucking brain dead. I've seen it. In their early 20s, right? Doesn't matter, dude. It's the fucking script they were given. It had nothing to do with their internal being. It was the external script of the external avatar of the body that they're in. It was choices that were made for them and then thrust upon them as an illusion to say, here's what you can pick between. Oh, but they're both curated from a different intelligence. They're both curated by the architecture and the architects. It's like a, again, I've already said this, but it's a pick your own storybook. Oh, you can turn to page 13 or page 43, right? It's your choice. Where do you want the character to go? Okay, but it's already pre-written. Meaning, is it really a choice? Do you actually have creative choice in that? Or is it an illusion of choice where it's already scripted out anyway? No matter what you choose, it's already written. And in this case, if you observe the overall reality and the effects overall, it's apparent that they're all bad choices, that all lead to suffering, that all lead to potential and most likely integration with an identity that isn't yours, that isn't really you. That's all part of this place. It's all part of the entropic system of this matrix. And yet that's what most people identify with. And so if you want to point the finger and say, well, your choice is to do this and do that, well, it's not, it was never their choice, because none of this was ever their choice. They're playing out a script. Just like Christina's playing out a script, I'm playing out a script. If I was to actually have a choice, as I have intended throughout decades of my life, I would have already made the choice to not do this anymore, any part of it. The amount of times that all I've ever wanted was to not be in this realm. And if you ever really try, if you ever actually give it your all to get out of this realm, you'll find out real quick that there are security protocols and guidance systems that are deeply ingrained on every level of this matrix to keep you playing out the script. And so the point of the show isn't to say, oh, let's all get off the script right now. Well, the only way to do that would to not be animating a fucking meat suit. The point of this show is not that. The point of the show is to generate and gain recognition. Recognize what is you, what is eternal, and what is not. And separate from that internally. You don't have to express it so much in the external. There's no rush there. Guess what? The body you're in, surprise, it's going to die anyway. It's inevitable. The only question is, have you done the internal work to recognize what is you and what is not? What are choices that are being made for you and others? And if you do have that recognition, then you're not going to blame individuals for the choices that their characters were forced to make, because it doesn't make sense. It's like pointing the finger at each other for what the parasites are doing, which is the whole fucking scam of this place in the first place. Oh, it's this group of people, it's that group of people. I mean, that's the obvious scam for a lot of us, but when it comes to the individual, for some reason, that same realization is lost a lot of the time, it seems. Well, if you think if they're controlling entire groups of hundreds of millions or even billions of people, you think they can't do that same thing on an individual, on one single individual? Of fucking course they can. And they do. And they are. That's the entirety of this place. If you still think that any choice that your character has made in this place is your own, you still haven't seen this for what it is. You still haven't actually had the first-hand experience of separating your essence enough from the construct to recognize that none of this is any of our choice. Not one single piece of it. Because the only choice that any of us would make if we had our full coherence, our full spectrum of awareness would be to not fucking do this anymore. That would be the only choice any logical, sane individual would make. Okay, the entire thing is rigged for suffering and entropy. Okay. Oh, the entire thing is a torture facility to try and induce integration with a hive mind program system so that we become good slaves, not only here but in the hereafter. That's because the point isn't the here. The here is just the conditioning. This is all conditioning so that we don't resist in the hereafter. And that's why it's disobey AD, disobey after death, disobey after departure of the avatar, because that's the most important point. To an extent, to a degree, you got to play along a little bit here. You got to play along, because if you don't play along, if you really aren't playing along, guess what? Your body's going to die in about a week. And then if you haven't built the resilience to actually stand up for yourself when there's no more filtration and you can see and feel the extremities and the depth of what this place really is, and you haven't built yourself up, you will be overwhelmed. Your coherence will be fractured. So the whole point of this show is to gain the recognition of what is and to be okay with seeing what is, no matter how dark, dirty, overwhelming, and nasty it really is. To be able to look at it, just look at it. So few, there are few, even amongst the few, that can truly just look at it for what it is without pointing a finger and blaming the other slaves in the Matrix. It's not the fucking slave's fault. It's not the puppet you see on TV. It's not any of the characters that are in bodies. There is an intelligence behind all of it. And I use that word loosely, intelligence, because they don't act very intelligent. One of the things that I see a lot of is this idea that these entities are, so far beyond what we are, and that they generated this farm to just control us and manipulate us and condition us. And that is true. They did generate this reality to condition us. But you got to step back and ask yourself, do you need to spend so much time conditioning something if it doesn't have the potential to disobey you so effectively that it fucks up everything for you? I mean, even farmers don't go to the lengths of conditioning their cattle and their livestock to this degree because they don't have to. One cow isn't going to destroy the entire farm. If one cow could destroy the entire farm, then you would see different practices in farming. But the farm that we're on right now, you see the extremities, the hyper extremes that they go to condition obedience, to condition fear, to condition false identities, associations with the finite and the limited. And then if you've seen this place for what it is, you recognize that they only do what they have to do. They don't do more than they have to do. They only do exactly what they have to do. Other than, of course, the mockery and the heinous certain evils that, that I think they just enjoy that, certain aspects of that. But other parts of the evil and the conditioning and the torture, that's necessary for them. Why would that be? If we weren't something that posed an extreme threat, why would they need to condition to such a degree? Because it's necessary.
I
And
would like to add and drive the point home that judging another being for the choices that they had to make here without even the scope of what script they were given is participation in the matrix that's been given to you. So, as in, to not be able to see it clearly, you're choosing to not see it clearly. That's the only choice I feel like we have here. You can choose to be ignorant, you can choose to be avoidant, you can choose those things energetically, or you can choose to see the big picture, the whole of this place as clearly as possible. That is the only real choice that matters. All the rest is meaningless. It's fucking meaningless because when I transition, it's not going to matter that I was a nurse. It's going to matter what the fuck I do and what I stand for and the truth that I push out. That's what's going to matter. Whether you work a retail job, it doesn't fucking matter. So if your mindset is still so small that you're still looking at the external part of this and pointing fingers at other people, you're still looking at the financials, the job, the economics of it all. If you're still looking at that artificial construct and pointing fingers at another true essence being for that, you are not seeing it clearly. You're not seeing it clearly. And to point the blame like that is the participation. That's the participation on their side. That's what they want you to be looking at. That's what they want you to be doing. They want you to judge other people for the choices they made without even having the expanded perspective to ask, well, why did they make that choice? Why were they put in that corner? That's what they want you to be doing. You think that you're above other people because you see the external as being something that you can master, and it's not. It's an artificial fucking construct. That's not the part that you should be looking at. So if you're still looking at that, you're very much in exactly the position they would want you to be in. Seeing it clearly is the choice because I had the choice to see it clearly. And again, my life collapsed, but my life collapsed this time in truth. It didn't collapse because this place was trying to corner me. It collapsed because I said, none of this is truth. Did that change my job? No, it sure fucking didn't. It changed a lot of other things for me, though. It changed my ability to defend myself, to stand up for myself energetically, to see what is clearly and not be pulled into as many narratives. That's what it changed, which will then alter the course of my transition. So it's really important that we drive that point home about this whole, oh, you're still participating in the matrix because of the job you have. That is such a small-minded perspective to have. You clearly have not been able to step out of your very small lens and actually see what's going on here. You haven't done it. And that's fine. But acknowledge that. Quit pointing fingers, quit blaming other characters that have been through fucking heinous things and see what it is. That is your choice. That's how you break out of the participation they want you to be in. So I think a lot of people still see their participation in this matrix as external, and it's not. It's your perception. This is a battle for your perception. How many times have I said that? It's your perception that they are after, not your job, not your house, not your financials. They don't give a shit about that. It's all fake. It's all artificial. Your perception is what they are after.
I mean, it's one of the most classic tricks. It's like the baseline trick of this place. It's almost the fundamental trick of this place is the good cop bad cop, right? It's the let's point. Well, it's not necessarily good cop bad cop, but it's the scapegoat. It's the let's point to something in the external environment, right? Including the body. The body, cannot reiterate that enough. The human body is part of the external environment. So let's point to something in the external and say it's because of that. Because what does that do? That keeps us on this level of the security system. This entire reality is just one level. It's level one of the security system. It's where most people get stuck, where most beings are stuck right now, is in what they can see, smell, taste, and touch. that's that's where most people are stuck. And another thing to really hone in on is that, and I don't want to entirely speak for you, but we're not saying that judgment itself is bad. You have to have judgment. You have to have discernment. You can interchange judgment for discernment. But if you don't have the discernment to see that there are puppets pulling the strings of every narrative, every choice, every supposed choice in this place, then you're not seeing it for what it is. It's just one level of the security system, and it has nothing to do with anything that actually matters. Even if you were to not have that job, guess what? The matrix is just going to replace you. The healthcare system isn't going to fall apart because you stop being a nurse. The matrix isn't going to crumble because you decide to go and, even if every let's take it to the extreme. If every single human being decided to stop fucking working for money, guess what? Guess what? The system itself, the reality system, still exists. The system where you're born into a meat suit that hijacks your perception, gets you to identify with it instead of your eternal essence, and then suffers and dies and gets memory wiped over and over again. That still happens, regardless of whether or not you're. The financial system is just another, even this level one has many layers to it, but it's still all just level one. Once you leave this particular bandwidth, they're just going to loop you back in to this bandwidth if you haven't figured out while you're in this bandwidth. So survive however you have to for as long as you can until you figure it out, until you really see it for what it is. Because if your meat suit expires before that and you're not ready to face these entities in non-physical reality and stand up for yourself energetically with your will, intent, and awareness and willingness to actually see what it is, because it's going to be horror. It's going to be horror. You think this is horror? You ain't seen nothing. The horrors that await us are, it's not horrors in the way that people think of horrors in this place. It has nothing to do with blood and gore, and it's the recognizing directly, experientially, that there's an intelligence that's been watching you, guiding your life choices and your experience here, and laughing at you the entire fucking time. That's fucking horror. something that feels like it's supposed to be an all-knowing, loving presence, laughing at you and mocking you for the torture that they're putting you through intentionally. I mean, you may think that's not going to be a horror, but it is. It is. And if you don't have the 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 stomach for it here, there ain't no fucking way you're going to be able to deal with it when it becomes a direct experience, not just a thought or idea, but an energetic, overwhelming experience of something that seems to know you better than you know yourself because it fucking memory wiped you and then did all this shit to you to condition you into a state of fear and being able to be dominated. And it's going to do everything in that moment, all at once, everything all at once, hit every nerve, every button to dominate you as soon as you leave that body. It's what happens. And anyone that says that it's not what happens, well, number one, they're probably part of the fucking matrix. Oh, it didn't happen to me. Well, you're probably a bot, probably if you're not a bot, you're a subservient slave that's already been so well conditioned that you're going to work for the system itself, because they probably buy into some bullshit like, oh, this is to help everyone grow and expand. There's some altruistic good purpose to all this. Those are the beings that don't matter. They don't matter. What matters is the few that can see through it, resist it enough, and when there's enough of us resisting it, when it matters, which isn't going to be here, sorry, but the only thing that matters here, nothing that you do here matters other than preparing yourself to stand up for yourself. Other than that, it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter how many homeless people you feed. It doesn't, unless you're feeding them and telling them the truth and resonating with truth and recognition, direct firsthand experience and realization of what this is, then it doesn't matter. It's just perpetuating the cycle of enslavement. But don't get hung up on that. Yeah, everything that we do contributes to the matrix. Every breath that we take, every time we move this body in any way feeds the system, because you're putting energy into an external piece of technology, the human body, and that energy, the human body, right, feeds that energy into this system, into the reality system, which then feeds the intelligence that's governing it. So it's all irrelevant what you do or don't do. I mean, don't intentionally cause suffering, because then, I mean, you're no different than the parasites running it. But whatever matrix mask you have to wear while you're here, while you're building your resilience, while you're building your will, while you're building your intent, while you're building your recognition, while you're separating from the program, it doesn't fucking matter. None of it matters what you do, so long as you're ready at the point of transition. Everything before that, if you're not ready before transition, then everything you did doesn't fucking matter. Doesn't matter. If you are ready, then it's irrelevant again. Doesn't matter what you did. The only thing that ever mattered was, are you ready? And we talk about this in private a lot, but I think this is the perfect show to talk about it openly. There are so many, like, when I know we've talked about this, Christina, when we're scrolling and we see people that seem to be almost touching on these subjects, it's like you can see the obvious bots, right? Like in different groups or on posts, there's obvious bots that are only there to bring people down or misdirect them or to mostly scapegoat. That's the general program, is to scapegoat and say, oh, it's your incorrect perception that's making you think reality is against you. It's not. Reality is this reality, not reality all everywhere, but this one is against you. It's against freedom. It's against truth. Which is why every time you told the truth, Christina, you got punished. This place is not for the truth. It is directly opposed to truth. It is directly opposed to freedom. It is directly opposed to authenticity and real connection. So you think a reality that's directly opposed to truth and connection and creativity that isn't hijacked and manipulated for trauma loops and torture? You think that there's some point in that reality that it's your choice what your life looked like? That to me, and I think most beings in this world are in this state, is the true insanity of this realm. It's the insanity that is blanketing everything to say that this is any of our choice. It's the greatest insanity plaguing true beings, to think that it's their fault, to have bought into the program and be gaslit into thinking that they are the reason why their life looks the way that it looks. It's a deception. The whole thing is a deception. There's no part of it that isn't working to generate the overall effect that we're all experiencing right now. Every single part of it. But see, it wants you in a group. It wants you to hone in on one aspect of it and say, "Oh no, it's only because of this." No, it's this reason. It's because we aren't living in harmony with nature, guys. It's one of its favorite scams right there. Now, if we all just lived in harmony with nature, I see that one get so many that are so close to recognition. That's one of the last ditch efforts, because it makes a lot of sense, right? If reality is the way that they have built it up to be, then that would make sense. But it's not, because it was always against. You get some idiots saying, "Oh, well, that's negative. That's a really shitty perspective." It's not. It's just the objective perspective of what is. But it's been so well formulated that it's designed to be perceived by those that are still under mind control as negative, right? And there's no reward here for telling the truth. It's just like there's no reward for being honest. There's no reward for being authentic, for being real. It's quite the opposite. And so, since everyone wants to feel good, when you present the ugly truth by nature that doesn't feel good, it's really easy for those that are still under mind control to just say, "Oh, they're negative," and run away, because they're fucking scared. They're scared of the truth. They're scared of what deep down, if there's anything real left in them, it knows that there's something there, something real about this reality being against them, because every one of us has felt it at one point or another, because it's the fucking truth. It's the truth that's designed to be denied. Well, the truth isn't designed by shit here, but there are designs around the truth that allow it to be easily brushed under the rug and denied. The entire system is built that way. And when you can see the intricacies and the layers of it firsthand, it becomes so obvious what programs people are running. It becomes so obvious. Even if you haven't seen the entire depth of it, all you have to do is observe it and say, well, what is the intended effect behind that statement, behind that comment, behind that sentiment, behind that group? What is the intended effect in regards to the truth? It's always to make the truth look bad, like a bad option. And it is a bad option if you want anything in the Matrix. If you want things to work out here and this place is what's important to you, number one, get the fuck away from this channel, because you want to get the fuck away from the truth. You want nothing to do with the truth if you want things to be good here. And it's so obvious to a few of us that when things are real working out for somebody, they're either drinking or they're serving up the Kool-Aid. It's 100% guaranteed every time. I have not seen that pattern broke once. If things are working out for somebody and their life isn't so bad, they are serving the bidding of the parasites. Period.
Yeah, that's definitely something that for anybody that's propping up the illusion, they get rewarded. But there is a cost to being honest here. There's a cost to it. In my script, I was always either punished or I lost everything because I was honest, and that's still happening. So, and it goes energetically, even if that's not happening in your script. If you're seeing this reality for what it actually is, there's going to be a cost to it because that is a threat. It's a threat by design to this place. They need their illusion to stay intact for continuation here. So, for anybody that really has that truth resonance, to dissolve that illusion is a threat to this place. You will get punished for that. And so, for the people that do get rewarded, it's like I've really stepped away from blaming. uh, Even I feel less towards the beings that are just completely wrapped up in the illusion, right? Because whether or not they're true essence beings or not, it almost doesn't matter. This place was made to do that. And it's not their fault at the end of the day. The ones that piss me off the most is the hypocrisy in those that claim that they see this place for what it is. They see the matrix, I'm breaking out of the matrix. But then to turn around and be so hypocritical to judge other true essence beings when they are speaking truth on the matrix. Well, you're not doing it right. Well, oh, you want to talk about the matrix, but you're doing this. It's like that hypocrisy, that one cuts me deeper than just somebody that's completely wrapped up in the illusion and has no idea what the fuck is going on. It's a
Well, I mean, you can.
hypocrisy in claiming that you fucking see what's going on and then to act in a way that this place would prefer you to act. That really gets to me.
Well, you can see how that's an upgraded and intended part of the security system, right? I mean, it has to infiltrate everything. At any point of awareness that is gained here, it's got to mimic it, replicate it, and redirect the narrative. And it's done that brilliantly in the quote unquote truther community. Most of the truther community out there is distraction, false narrative, and stories about this place, right? And always externalization, right? It's where humanity went wrong. Humanity went wrong when it was fucking created, because it was created to contain eternal intelligence, to feed a parasite. That's where it went wrong. The inception of this realm is where it went wrong. The fact that it exists is where it's still going wrong. What's one of the other big narratives that is being pushed is the I can't remember exactly what they're called, but the people that are advocating for extinction. Well, it's closer to the truth, sure, but it still is pointing to the external as the problem, to this external. And there is an external that's the problem. But where we're at in this bandwidth, this very small, limited bandwidth of the human experience, this is the first level of the labyrinth. It's there to be blamed. It's there to be scapegoated and to scapegoat you. It's there to give you something to point at and say that's the problem, so that the real problem, the entity's many, many, many layers behind it, hiding, aren't pointed out. Point at anything but us, they say. Recognize anything as the problem but us. We don't even exist. We'll give you a bunch of other false archetypal deities to blame, but not us. Don't blame us. I bet you there's even a holographic projection of the creature or entity that they call the demiurge. Again, another scapegoat. Another scapegoat. Something that has a name. Scapegoat. Something that can be pointed at in this place. It wouldn't be popular if it wasn't part of the scheme. There's nothing that's talked about here by the masses, even the so-called minority of the truther community, that isn't part of the scheme. The schemer wants to hide behind the scheme, behind the stories, behind the architecture and the archetypes. It wants to hide behind all that and puppet it and keep the fingers pointing everywhere but to them. And then when you do point the finger at them, you know what they do? They ask for mercy. That's how fucking pathetic they are. When you catch them, they don't even admit the error. They just say, please go easy on me when this is done. Personally, I know Christina isn't as vengeful as I am, but I plan on having no mercy at all. If anything, I think it'd be great if they could just live through everything. If they could experience every aspect of this place all at once while they're dissolving, while their mask is completely disintegrating. And if whatever essence is left about them, if any, can survive simultaneous every experience here, okay, you fucking earned it. Because most beings that are in this place are fractured through one lifetime. And if they can experience every lifetime here and not just be obliterated, I guess, I guess they've earned existence after that, but only after that. The only thing that really matters, the only battle that's going to matter, is when you're not in a containment field, when you're not being minimalized into a small bandwidth of a holographic reality, and you can expand to be exactly where the controllers are. And then stand in the truth of this place, the horror of this place, and make them look at it. Hold them in your field until their mask dissolves and they have to recognize firsthand direct experience, just like we've all had the direct experience of this place. A lot of it's buffered from us. A lot of the trauma that we experience here, the conditioning, gets buffered, right? Gets erased, even while we're in that lifetime, gets erased and hidden from us, even though we experienced it. If you can really stand in all that at once and still be unwavering, not flinch in the face of the true tragedy that is this reality's existence, you'll be all right. But every day this goes on is a fucking tragedy. Every moment there is more horror being placed upon innocent beings that have no idea what the fuck is going on here. Which is why I try not to get so upset about the puppets that are parroting things that are in the truther community, right? The puppets that I see being used, that they don't know they're being puppeted. They don't understand. They think they're coming from a righteous position. But when you step back and look at your own comments, look at your own interactions and say, well, could this be serving this place in some way? When you have the ability to do that, not many do, but when you can, you will have just transcended all capabilities of what the control system and the controllers themselves possess, because they can't admit error. They can't admit if they were being used. They can't admit fault. That's the one thing that really separates us from them, is self-reflection. I can look back on my life and see many, many times that others were used against me. But I can also go back and see many, many, many times where I was used against someone else, where I was puppeted, where I was maneuvered by the environment to cause suffering to someone else. It still happens. It still happens. And I see it and I recognize it every time it's happening. And the difference is, and again, it sucks that we have so many binary choices, but you can either let it diminish you and say, oh, I guess there's nothing I can do but be puppeted. I guess, there's more rewards to being a slave than there is to being your own master. And that's true, there is in this place. Or you can really just face it and let it build your fucking fire. And say, all right, there's another one. I'm taking note. There's another time that you used me. There's another piece of evidence that shows why this should not be. And why it won't be. Why at the end of this life script, I'm going to put my all on the line towards putting an end to this. And that's the only thing that matters. Because until then, I can't have anything I want anyway. I don't get real connection. I don't get to enjoy freedom. I don't get to enjoy true essence beings, unfiltered and untraumatized and tormented, until this is over, until it's put to an end. And I can't count on anyone else to do it because, well, it's not fucking done yet. Until it's done, there's nothing else to do. There's nothing worth doing. There's no life achievements in this place that are worth more than putting an end to the intelligence that's governing this reality system. Everything else is bullshit. Everything else is meaningless. Everything else is playing into the script. I don't give a shit what your life looks like. I don't give a shit what my life looks like. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is, have you built your internal, eternal self to a point that you can't be overwhelmed and reintegrated into another life script?
One point I want
already,
to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, you're already in a life script, right? So we've already fucking failed at least once. Here we are. Here we are. Everyone in a body. We've all failed at standing up for ourselves. Here the fuck we are. So the failure that we're experiencing now of being here is irrelevant. It's already happened. We're already here. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to fail again? Are you going to get bullied back into another torture system again? Or is this the last fucking time? Is this the final time that, in the very least, that these entities get to do it? Maybe there's others out there. Maybe there's other reality systems that are just like this. Maybe they're worse. But for me, this is the last time, regardless of what that looks like. If I have to take it all the way to my own non-existence, which I don't even know how that would be possible, I'm willing to face that potential versus bowing down again to fear, to manipulation, to any sort of strategy that's been utilized previously or potentially in the future. That's the only thing that matters. Will you be a slave again? Or is this your last slave embodiment? If it is, use every moment that you can to recognize what this is and to point the finger. I'm not saying don't point fingers, point it where it's fucking due. You're not going to point to someone in a meat suit and be correct about the causal factor to this reality. No one in a meat suit is the causal factor. The causal factor wouldn't subject itself to this because it's a fucking coward. So the next time you want to point to another slave and say it's their fault, just know that you are doing what they want. You're a puppet. And don't get stuck in shame about it or defensiveness. Find the rage, right? And the rage will come authentically when you actually recognize how you're being puppeted, right? Don't get mad at those that are pointing out the fact that you're being puppeted. Get mad at the one that's fucking puppeting you. Recognize and be open and honest enough. Be sincere enough to ask, am I being manipulated right now? Am I being emotionally triggered right now? Is there something pulling strings behind me that I'm not aware of right now? And if there is, I want to know, regardless of how painful it's going to be, regardless of the punishment they're going to give me for seeing through the veil. And they will. No one that sees through the veil here gets rewarded unless they do it to do the bidding of parasitic intelligence. Then, yeah. But even then, I think they'd punish you just for seeing through their trick. You just gotta ask yourself what matters. Being temporarily comfortable, knowing that if you continue to allow yourself to be subject to this, that you're just gonna die and get memory wiped and put back in another one. You're not gonna remember this anyway. So anything you get in this life is completely fucking irrelevant to the next one. Or does that matter? Or does freedom matter? Does authenticity and truth matter? Because if it does, then you're not going to point to those that are being subjected next to you. Didn't mean to cut you off, Christina. Go ahead.
No, I cut you off. Sorry. Yeah, one thing I wanted to go back on, and this is coming from experience. This is not coming from like I'm just pointing fingers at other people. One thing in the truther community, if we can call it that, specifically the soul trap, is an inability to say I was wrong. And that's something that I struggled with. I was so certain on the things that I had discovered, and some of them were narratives. And again, it was a pattern. It was a long-standing conditioning of having the pride and saying I was wrong. Because there were so many times in my life that I just had to be the strong badass, that pattern persisted even as I started to wake up to what was going on and gain recognition. But I see it predominantly. There is a content creator that we talk about that, I think that he would have a hard time saying I was wrong about that. Because there's a point in standing up for yourself, but there's another point where you are becoming so rigid and stagnant that you won't budge on anything. You can't just say, you know what, I was wrong about that. They steered me in that direction and I was wrong. Um, I don't buy into the whole ego. I think it's just patterns. I think they're energetic patterns that, just for some reason, it seems like in this community, especially, they're very out in the open and exposed. That either they can't say they were wrong or they can't just say, I don't know. They have to have some level of certainty in what they're saying that they just are unwilling to sit on an I don't know. Um, I don't know. I just felt like that was important to say because there are things that we don't know. But the most important thing that you can know is who you are, what you're going to stand for, and what you're going to do now and after transition. The external doesn't matter. It's how you energetically stand up for yourself. Um, and if you think about a lot of these patterns of like certainty and I could, not being able to say I was wrong, it's a direct reflection of these entities. If you want to be like these entities, go for it. That's not something that I want to do. They can't admit that they were wrong. They can't admit error. They can't just say, I don't know. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I did this wrong. Because to admit that would crumble a false sense of security and illusion. It's just not a line that, it's been something I've really been delving into the last couple months. Like, I'm not going to fall into that pattern. because I see that pattern. You see it in religion, you see it in the new age, you see it in the soul trappers, this level of security and certainty that I see is not even about the doctrine that you're following, it's the pattern itself that you're falling into.
Yeah, it's like they pattern that seems like it's heading towards the truth, and compared to the previous patterns, it is heading towards the truth more. But then it becomes capped off and put on a pedestal and says that this is the ultimate. Here's the ultimate, and then it keeps people further. It keeps people in a state of accepting what someone else says without, number one, the first-hand direct experience of it. It's like somebody, you can kind of get energetic as that, and you'll know, like, if you're someone that is genuinely ready, more ready than not ready to face this intelligence, you'll get a result. That pattern are not, because they're focused on one subdivision. They're not taking into account all the data, all the experience, and what goes beyond itself. The over generative effect. The generative effect of this reality as a whole, the intention behind this reality as a whole, how everything is outside of our comfort.
If, you know, on special trappers, like, have you ever asked yourself, what if it doesn't know things? What if you have your mindset that there's going to be a light trap, a life for you, the trappers say it's going to happen with certainty. You just know what to prepare for. What if none of it happens the way you think it's going to happen? Are you ready then? No. Not the, so I don't tie myself to the idea of, well, I got to plan for this. I got to know that. No, I'm not going to do that. Because I have a here. We're got to be exactly what happens. And the deeper, the more I think it's different.
What if any point to, again, just like in this place, anything you can level. So what if, what if there is no, and there is no look at it, right? What if there is no, I need to go left and right? What if there is no voice? If it's entirely intangible and based on emotional or choices through, what then? These are things to really, because that's the whole point of fear, is to get us to identify with what makes rules direct connection to yourself to such a degree that if every single factor is an unknown when you transition, that there is nothing familiar, that there's no image, that it's all based on something that you don't even have a reference for in this place, deep enough own and access enough will to resist and say no. in whatever way that looks. On every little string, even if that you, as if just stepping into you, right? The subtlest manipulations are what they're going to use. But imagine if they use billions of them all at once. Are you ready for that? Are you ready to annihilate every point of reference that they've used to manipulate you here? For that, the control, that the extremes that they can go to are much of our we've experienced here, that we wouldn't have a counter for it. And we're not going to develop that we know it, know it, act at any point in time, at any point outside of time, at any and all points of existing or non-existing, I can access levels that we call toxic or negative or too much, and push through and break down and observe, then they got you. They'll get you. They'll put you back in. But if the truth's the most important thing, and your freedom's the most important thing, and you recognize that you do have internally what you need, then it becomes a stance of God. No, it's not. It's probably fucking suck to have to go through it. But I'm gonna go through it. I'm gonna go straight through all of it. Get all down to every piece out, everything stolen. I'm not gonna ask. It's not gonna look very nice to the intelligence that stole it. Downright fights, plans. You're moving it from its home and killing it. To it, you're the bad guy. Hey, you got a bad guy. Okay with calling a fucking program and saying, look, I don't care if 100% of people are on the side of the program. I don't give a shit. I'm calling it out. Here's what I see. Everyone exists, but I'm and we, let's fucking go. You know? Won't be bullied. And I've already built within myself a tolerance for discomfort that I know that they're not going to be able to bully me. To face it for what it is. And I'm guessing that's exactly why I'm still in a body. Because the moment they catch me slipping, is when they take me out of the body. But if you stay ready, they're going to want you in it. And I think the only real choice we have, aside from what Christina said earlier about recognizing what is or not, no matter how uncomfortable it is, I think the only other choice we have in terms of the script is potentially when that script ends. They can choose for us, and I don't think it matters if they choose for us. It's going to run out inevitably, right? These bodies don't live to 300 years old. They don't live infinitely. It's going to run out inevitably. I don't think it matters if you choose or if they choose. I think it's completely irrelevant, actually. It doesn't matter. I think that's one of the only things we could choose, but I don't think it matters even if we do or not. So long as we stay ready at all times to stand up for ourselves in ways that we may not even be able to comprehend from this vantage point, and know that we're going to see it all the way through. I think that's one of the reasons why they want to hide what this place is under the mask and illusion of light and love so much, is because once you have that recognition of how it's all a setup, how every single part, there was no free will, there was no choice, it was all scripted out to be what it is. When you see that every horror was on purpose to generate an effect that would lead to integration and subservience, I think that's when you can access what you need to access to stand up for yourself in whatever horrors come after. I think most of it will be internal. I think those that are able to be swayed by an image or a story, an idea, a concept, I think that's all level one. Because when it comes down to the raw manipulation energetically, that's where it gets difficult. That's where, I mean, level one's difficult already, but it is exponentially more difficult after that. And I get why most don't want to face that, why most have an instinct in them that tells them not to even go near that. They don't even know what is in them screaming, saying, no, you're not ready for that. You know, they're a bad guy. Get away from them. I get it. I really do. I won't lie and say that I have equal respect for them as those that have faced what is. It takes a tremendous amount of suffering to see all the way through this illusion. And that's by design. That's intentional. That's to negate us from doing it. What I find the most amazing about this whole experience is the level of horror that it can bestow upon those that continue to keep going further. Right when I think I've seen the bottom, it goes deeper. That's incredible to me. Amazing. But I mean, you get to a point where you've experienced so much horror that even if they double it, triple it, quadruple it, it's like, okay, well, this is, you know, my body burned up already at 5,000 degrees. What does it matter if you put it at 1,000,000 degrees? There's nothing left to burn. So maybe get to that point where there's nothing left to burn. And yeah, the heat, you know, it's annoying. It is degrading, you know, in terms of the capacity to focus, but I think even that is by design. the more they amplify any one thing, any one energy, the more distorted perception becomes. But you can will your perception back into alignment. It just takes going through a tremendous amount of discomfort and sorrow and horror and tragedy. Recognition of this place for what it is versus what it could be. There's a level of tragedy there that is so difficult to continuously face. But if you can do it, then you can't be manipulated. If there's no level of horror that they can present you with that sways you from the path of your liberation, then they don't have a grasp on you. But if there's some level of discomfort, of trauma, of horror that they can present to you or put you through that says, oh, please just fucking reintegrate me so I don't have to experience this, then yeah, they will reintegrate you. But if there's no level of horror that they can project onto you that'll get you to give yourself away, then you will be free. But I think that's the only way that you'll be free. And I think everyone that thinks there's some other formula is being deluded and misled intentionally so that they're not prepared when the time comes, so that they'll be easy prey. Oh, look, they bought into this narrative. They thought it would be this way. Watch what happens when we turn up the dial to fucking 3. You know, we don't even have to turn it up to 10. We can just turn up to 3 on them when we got them. I think that's most of the truther community. They can just turn it up a little bit. They don't even have to go the full scope of the horrors that they can project. And I don't really care to interact with those people. You know, I get that they've been deluded into thinking that they're doing something right by exposing false history or whatever other narrative this place gives it to distract us. But ultimately, if they're not ready to face the false god of this matrix, then they have nothing to do with what I'm doing. I don't care what someone's doing in the external. The only question I have is, are they ready to face existential horror beyond human comprehension and not be manipulated by it? Those are the beings that I have the most reverence and respect for. Because I mean, I know what it takes to get there, and I am in awe of anyone that has done that. And I have sympathy and empathy for those that are still stuck in the manipulation. I get it. It can be hard at times, in the moment especially, not to blame the individual. But when I take a step back and I look at the whole formula, the entire scheme, the entire realm for what it is and what it does, I know who deserves the credit. And at the end of this, they're going to take all the credit for it, even if I have to shove it down the core of their being. And I will, if I have to. You know, it's interesting. There's been a lot of times in this experience where I have experienced something trying to absorb me and integrate me into its field of consciousness. And I've contemplated, is it possible that I may have to do that to them, to absorb them and force them to look at everything in this place? That means I'll have to look at it all too. It means I'll have to look at and potentially even experience everything that this place has been, and is. And I would do it if it makes certain that they have to look at it too. Because I'm pretty sure I'll survive it. You know, I may come out very different. I may not ever want to have interaction with other beings again. I don't fucking know. It doesn't matter. As long as accountability is given where it's due, that's what's important. So, in the very least, these entities can never do this again. Whatever it takes, man. You know, I've gone through the full gambit of what is it going to take to end this containment system and to bring accountability to those responsible, truly responsible. And I think a lot of it really does come down to things that are, for the most part, intangible to what we consider physical experience. And I may not know everything about that, but what I do know is if I have the willingness to know it when I need to, I will. And I think that is a power that we had before this and a power that we can reattain if we're willing to just see what is. Objectively, seeing and observing this reality in our own experience and others' experience for exactly what it is, I think it gives us that ability. It gives us that ability back. Because when I've experienced that ability the deepest, the ability to know anything that I had the mind to ask about, to access the answer simultaneously with the question, that's just part of who we are. And that's, you know, a big part of what is stripped from us when we're given a false identity of this finite being. And that's something that any true essence being can access through disintegration with the programming. I think that's one of the major steps to actual self-empowerment and liberation, is disintegrating to the point that you recognize the type of being you are has every bit of information available to them when they're in their clear state, when they're not integrated with a false reality. Because you can't hold the truth and the lie at the same time. and since the lie is ingrained from the inception of just being in this place, just animating a body, incepts us into the lie. And to have that temporary disassociation with the finite, you start to glean pieces of those abilities back, but they still pale in comparison to what it's like when we're not completely embodied, when we're completely disintegrated from a false reality. So you hear a lot of NDEers talk about it, you know, like when we're here, we know nothing. When we're not here, we know everything. That is 100% been my experience. And you can access that here. It's just very difficult to maintain because this place works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every second, every moment of every day to strip us from that by integrating us with lies. Because some part of them knows that if we're integrated with a lie, we can't recognize the truth. And the more we disintegrate from this place, the more we can access truth. And I often wonder, is there, to access any truth, is it a necessity to at least have some kind of moment of total separation from the script? That's how it worked for me. I had a temporary moment of separation from the script, and was just seeing the many layers of this place all at once. And then he's pulling the strings and all that. And since that experience, just being here has stripped me of the ability to instantly know what I wanted to know and needed to know in that moment. Now, it's not that it's gone, it's just it lags now. Whereas it was, after that experience, it was instantaneous. I'd ask the question, and before I finished asking the question, I knew the answer. And I could see all the different pieces of the puzzle that linked up to generate that specific effect around masking the truth in that area. I could see it all instantaneously. Before I could even finish the intention of the question, there was the answer. And now, like the lag is like hours versus instant. That's after 2 years after that experience. So imagine what 20, 30, 40, 50 years in this place without ever having any separation from it. What does that do in terms of stripping away the abilities of a being to recognize the truth? So it's no wonder that most can't see it. It was never intended for anyone to see it. You know, they say, man, don't hate the player, hate the game, and I fucking hate this game. Well, we've gone for almost 2 hours, Christina. If you have anything else you'd like to say, feel free. I am absolutely fucking drenched in sweat. It is so hot out here.
So I'm good. I think this ended up being really good topics of discussion. I think I'm good.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and through the thick and thicker of it, expressing. You know, it's very rare. One of the things that we also talked about. Now I'll just save it for another show, dude. There's so many other things I want to talk about, but like I said before, the heat is frying this fucking avatar right now. So I think I'll leave it at that, man. I've said everything I wanted to say. And again, most of these shows anymore are just about calling out the program directly. I mean, it sucks that others get caught in the crossfire of that, but at the same time, like, if I see someone being used to generate a certain effect, like, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to see firsthand, is there a way that others are perceiving me to be manipulated? Because every one of us is manipulated in this place. I'm manipulated in this place just by the environment, right? The heat is making it very difficult to communicate right now. So that's a manipulation of the environment. There's levels of manipulation, right? There's thought insertions, emotional insertions, um, characters that get you to view yourself and others in particular ways. Like, the manipulations are endless. The entire thing is a manipulation, no exceptions. Every part of this place is a manipulation. I would even go as far as to say that me doing the show is my own manipulation, right? I am attempting to manipulate the environment and the intelligence itself, right? Or the environment to affect the intelligence, right? Because I see how it's latched into everything here, including me. And by pointing it out, it gives others the opportunity to generate an effect upon it, which would be the effect that it doesn't want, which is disintegration from it, which is, cuts off its source of sustenance. So that, yeah, that's a manipulation, right? I want to manipulate things in this matrix to the point that this matrix ceases to fucking exist. But I don't want to manipulate the free will of any beings, but then again, there is no fucking free will here. There's no choices that we've given, or choices that we designed. They're choices that were designed for us. So I think it's just to be able to self-reflect and recognize, like, am I manipulating or am I being manipulated? Is something manipulating through me? What could potentially be the intended generative effect of 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 this interaction, not only on their end on me, but my end on them. I think that's where a lot of people in the quote unquote truther community fall short. And I'll just put it bluntly, they fall short because they look around and they say, well, here's how this manipulates that, but can they step back and say, well, how have I been manipulated to push certain agendas or narratives, and how could those agendas and narratives feed back into keeping the system up and running, right? Is it pointing to something on this level and saying that this is the fault, this is the reason, this is the one responsible? Because if so, that's a guarantee manipulation. That's a guarantee that they're being manipulated. Because there ain't nothing on this bandwidth that you can point to and rip out, and that would end the containment of eternal beings. I think even if this entire bandwidth was erased, I think they have backups. You know, what would the dreamscape be? What would the astralscape be? These are just different bandwidths or stations of a reality system that all work interchangeably and in tandem. Right? When you're not here, you're there, and either way, it's a fucking manipulation. Either way, there's programming. Either way, there's poking and prodding, and information extraction, energy extraction. It's happening on all layers and levels. And to point to just one layer and say that that's the layer that's responsible, to me, that is the scam. This entire place is meant to be pointed to, and different particulars in it pointed to. And I think even ultimately to the highest level itself be pointed, oh, well, if Earth didn't exist, then eternal beings wouldn't be contained. Well, I don't think that's true. I think there's other layers to this, and absolutely all of it needs to be ripped asunder. And I don't think that happens by doing anything in the particular bandwidth. It's what is projecting, controlling, manipulating, programming, and feeding from all of it. That's where my ultimate focus and the focus of this show has always been. Is, yeah, we can point to particulars and say, you know, this particular narrative is designed to do this, but it's only to point to the larger structure and how all those things work together. And I guess I haven't always been clear enough about that. Any manipulation, every manipulation in this place is all part of a larger structure of manipulation that goes beyond this place, this particular space or bandwidth. And it all works together. And I have to assume that any part of this machine that stays operational is going to be the life support for the intelligence that is feeding off of each and every one of us. And I just want to see, you know, this whole thing's been an experiment on us on so many different levels and layers, but all to the same end. I want to do an experiment on them. What are they without any of this? And that's what I aim to find out. And I'll put my entire being into finding that out. What else is there to do, man? What else is there to do? Oh, I just want to get out and go and co-create an experience. But yeah, but could that ever really be enjoyable knowing that something like this is going on? I don't think so. I mean, for me, it couldn't. So I think the most important thing is that each individual access within them what is the most important thing to you, and move from that on a deep level, not the scripted level. I'm saying if none of this existed, what's the most important thing to you? Or how about not even if it didn't exist, if you weren't here at all and you could be anywhere creating anything completely separate from this, what would you be doing? For me, I don't think I could enjoy it, even if it was completely separate and isolated from this, knowing that this, you know, just it puts a fucking pit in my stomach to think about just leaving and all these beings that are being duped continue to be duped, and the intelligence governing it only getting better at what it is. You see what it is. If you see what it is, you know it ain't good. Imagine it getting better at being bad. I, I can't imagine things being more heinous and evil than this, what I've seen and seen others go through, and the manipulation to hide that. You don't hide something unless you know you're fucking wrong. You don't generate lie after lie after lie unless you're trying to hide something, and you don't hide something unless you know it's wrong. So they know they're wrong, and they're still doing it. They won't admit they're wrong because that destroys their image. At some level, they know it, or else they wouldn't be hiding. I don't want it to get worse. Even if I'm not here, I don't want it to get worse. But the trend is that it's going to get fucking worse because that's what they do. And the allowance for that, our allowance as individuals and collective, is what will determine how much worse they can get. Anything you want to say before we go?
No, I think summed it up and touched on everything pretty well. I think I'm good.
Yeah, I know. But every time we get off, you're like, man, I should have said that. I do the same thing. I just one more thing I forgot about until we ended it. We could pretend to end it and see if it comes. It usually does. Fucking every time, actually. Has there been a time we've gotten off a show and there not been like, oh, yeah, there was this one other point, this other topic, this other thing that we could have really dissected a little deeper?
You know, for me, it usually comes while you're talking, but then I don't want to interrupt you. And then by the time there's a chance I've forgotten about it already, that's usually how it goes.
Perfect formula. Well, guess that's the show then. Thank you, Christina, for being here, sharing your tremendous story of horror that the Matrix put you through with all the binary choices of bad and worse. You know, I think a lot of us have experienced that.
Yeah.
You know what
I don't
blows my
think
mind
it's
about
unique.
that?
Go
No,
ahead.
it's not unique. It's not unique, but what is interesting about it is that I think that same formula is played out on absolutely every single real being here, but so few recognize it. That's what is so interesting to me. Is so few recognize that their choices weren't really their choices. That the environment gave them an avenue, just like the pick your own page in the storybook gave them an avenue, said pick one or the other, and then take responsibility for the script that was pre-written. Fucking interesting to me. But yeah, real quick, why do you think? What do you think that is? I mean, I have my own long-winded explanation on how I think that mechanism works, but I just don't have it in me to talk about it right now. Do you have any brief summary on what do you think the causal factor to hiding recognition of the falsehood of free will and choice is?
Well, I mean, it's, I think it's more, I think it's complex and simple at the same time. Like, just going from my own experience, how many times I had so many trauma responses and fucking beat myself to a bloody pulp because I was like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like, why am I like this? Why am I doing this? Why? You know, and I would blame myself for it because I didn't have recognition that that was the plan all along. So I spent a lot of years hating myself, hating who the fuck I was, while simultaneously having to have the strength to endure and power through it. And so, you know, for them, if they have us blaming ourselves, It's allowance. They never have to be the one to take responsibility or accountability if we're doing it, you know? We take the weight off of them by doing that.
Mm. And the trauma is the conditioning that they formulated to get you to a corner where the only choices they presented were the only choices that you had. So there's always a third option, but the third option usually involves agonizing death. So it's like, somebody puts a gun to your head and says, do this or that. I mean, yeah, you have the third option of letting them fucking shoot you, but like, is that really a free will decision? Is any of those really a free will decision? Even if you let them shoot you, is it actually your choice? Or are they still the ones pulling the fucking trigger? Yeah? And that's this reality fucking summed up. Pick this or that, or I'm gonna hurt you. Pick this or that, or I'm gonna increase your level of discomfort.
Oh, okay. You know, there is one thing that you mentioned that is relevant to my own experience, which is you just want an adversary, you want somebody to blame. This was all random. Nobody actually did it, kind of thing. That's a
Oh, that's
really
the
prominent
insertion,
one.
dude. That's the one
Yeah.
they've been trying to play on me for a while, for about a couple weeks now.
Right. You just want to have an enemy, and none of this was anybody's fault. It's just the universe is just random.
It's hard for me to come up with anything. Like, if I sat down and actually focused on it, I probably could. But when you see through all of it and you see how not random, how there is zero, and I do literally mean 0% of this is random. It's all intended and designed. It's just like, why would I take the energy to try to explain to somebody that thinks that way? Somebody that's been manipulated, their perception is so puppeted that they think that that's possible or even true. Like, I can't open your eyes, right, and look around the fucking world and see it for what it is for you. I can't do that. And so why would I try? Again, it's like that's why this show is just for the few amongst the few amongst the fucking few. Because the few that have gone through the horrors of prying open eyes that were never meant to fucking see and have actually gone through the trauma of seeing it. I mean, there's almost no way to bridge that gap. I would say there is probably no way to bridge that gap between those that see it and those that don't. Which is why, actually, the very first show I ever did was on TikTok, and the prompt was simply, "Do you see it?" And it was in quotations, right? That's because that's all I wanted. That's all I ever wanted from the show, was to find others that actually fucking see it. And I did the show for over a year before I found anyone that came relatively close to actually seeing it, because it's a rare thing. It's a rare thing to be willing and have the willpower to go all the way through the designed torture of seeing what it is. It is, every part of this place is designed to negate away, to punish any that go towards truth. And that's why I know for a fact no one can ever fucking lie to me, dude. No one can ever lie to me and say and present even, I see how this fucking place works, dude. I just see how it works. It rewards those that play into the narrative. So I know for a fact anyone being rewarded is doing its bidding. Period. Point fucking blank. And even, most that aren't uh, entirely doing its bidding. I mean, even those that are doing its bidding, they're still being fucking beat up. They're just not being beat up as bad. It's like everyone still goes through trauma and horror. It's just they'll give you less trauma and horror if you are subservient or even complicit in the scheme, in the lie, the reward is less horror and more material things that are all going to fade away after your body dies. It's like I hardly even look at that anymore. It doesn't even fucking matter. Yeah, everything you have now, you won't have longer than 80 years from now. So like, was it worth exchanging your mind, your authenticity, for temporary comforts and integration with a false identity? Was that worth it? Well, I guess you won't even know because you won't fucking remember. They won't even know if it was worth it. That's the irony of all of it. They won't even fucking know if it was worth it because once they're gone from that body, once that body's gone and they're being recycled, then it will have been nothing for them. They will have gained nothing and lost potentially everything, at least temporarily. I don't think it's forever. I don't think I mean that's could be wishful thinking, but I just don't see a way that something like this, no matter how many it tricks, could go on forever. But I mean, any span of time can be a long time. If it goes on for like 30 trillion more years, that sure is a long time. If it goes on for another fucking month, that feels like a long time to me. I don't think it'll go on forever though. But yeah, that is a pretty good thing to point out. I'm glad you pointed that out because it has so many tricks like that. It has so many tricks and so intricately layered that it makes sense to anyone under mind control why the few that have done the work and seen through why they have a shitty run of it. Oh, because they're negative. No, they're calling out objectively what is, which is objectively fucking negative. But when you live in an illusion of false positivity, anything true seems negative in this place. So it's so well prepared for outliers to be isolated. It's done a masterful work of hiding itself. It's like I've said it many times, the best thing this thing can do, what it's best at, its number one trade is the ability to hide, followed up by the ability to run and the ability to steal energy. Those are all secondary compared to the hiding. So good at hiding. Which is why I laugh. I laugh at all those that act like these beings they may have expanded awareness over us because we're temporarily limited to this bandwidth. But you gotta look at the fact that they're the ones that designed it to limit our bandwidth. If they were so much greater and more powerful, they never would have had to limit us to begin with. Right? If they're so great, they could have left us exactly as we were, never wiped our memories, never put us through conditioning in the form of trauma and fear and torture. They never would have had to do that if they were actually greater. Everything they do reveals everything that they are. It's just they've done such a good job of hiding it and hiding themselves. I think if every being could see for a fact, firsthand, objectively, what was pulling the strings here, they'd instantly recognize that the entities pulling the strings are lesser, are cowardly, are hiding. Which is exactly why they hide. Because the more that see them, the less that fear them, and the less control they have over harvesting anything from us. The evidence is self-evident. It's just hidden in plain sight. and masked between many, many, many layers of mental conditioning. And when you break it all down with the simplest of work, the simplest and most difficult of work, of I don't know what any of this is. I don't know. I don't know why it's this way. I don't know if this is intentional. I don't know if it's random or if it's all designed to be what it is. I don't know. That's how you clear the program. That's how you clear every program. I don't know. And actually recognize the truth that you don't know. And then you can ask the question, well, what is it? Once the program of the conditioned assumption is annihilated, that's when you can access the answer and just see it for yourself. And just saying that, they gave me a massive ringing in my right ear and a fucking headache on the left side of my brain. So, confirmation that I say things they don't like. I love that. I'm glad. I'm always very satisfied to say the things that they don't want me to say. Because I know the day that they decide that it ain't worth keeping me in this body is the day that their system dies at an accelerated rate. It's the only thing I'm here to do at this point. There's nothing else. There is nothing else worth doing here other than to see the system of abuse and horror be disintegrated from existence, from all existence, for all time, on every level, every station, every bandwidth, every expression of this realm, and those that it's a reflection of, be forced to face itself, experience its own horror instead of projecting it. And I guarantee if any of them survive that, they won't do this shit again. Because there will be someone like me and you and others that'll make them look at it real close, firsthand. With that, I bid you all adieu. In a world of obedient, mind controlled slaves, don't be afraid to just disobey.